Hi everybody, my name's Kim Goldberg and I'm going to be showing you how to program your Lego Mindstorm EV3 robot to do some basic movement such as going straight, left, right, and even backwards. For this video, I'm using a Riley Rover build that I found on the internet. Very easy build to make this robot. The nice thing about this robot is it allows you to put any add-ons on very easily. Like you can add a touch sensor, ultrasonic sensor, and so on very easily to this particular build. So if you want to use it, just go on the internet, search Riley Rover, and you will find it. So before we begin, we have to open up our software. I'm on a Mac computer, so my software happens to be on the dock. You find it and click on it to open. It usually takes a second to load. Once it loads, we're going to go up top here to File, and we're going to do New Project. And we're creating our first program, so we'll click on Program and Open. So this screen is where we're going to create our actual first program. So let's talk about it. So here is where we actually snap the blocks together to create the program. Down here is what we call your palette, and there's different tabs. We're actually only going to use the Action tab today, so the green tab, to create our movements, to making the robot go straight, left, right, and backwards could all be done with just using the Action movements today. Over here is your content editor. This is if you wanted to take notes or create a little tutorial. We're not going to do that today, so I'm going to go up right over here in the corner and hit Close Content Editor. And the next thing I want to do is name my project. Here's your actual project, and here's your program. So it's almost like having a folder on your computer, and then you have mini files inside that folder. So we're going to do the same thing. So our first program, we're going to double click on it and rename it to just say basic, actually, you know what? Moving bot in T shape. I'm going to try to make a T shape for you today. Then we're going to go to File, Save Project, and I'm going to name the project Basic Movements and hit the Save button. You can see it, change it up here, and this is my project folder, and here's my first program within my project. You can have multiple programs in your project folder if you want. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am connected to my EV3 brick. To do this, you can go down here to the hardware information and you can click on available bricks right here. I'm actually going to refresh this. I'm hooked up Bluetooth. You can also be plugged in with your USB, or you can be connected Wi-Fi. I have been finding that the Bluetooth sometimes doesn't connect so easily. As of right now, you can see that I'm not connecting on the Bluetooth. I'm going to try to refresh the page one more time and hope that I can connect, or I will go into the brick itself and try to set it again. This is not the easiest thing. Okay, I am connected. The second time I refresh the page, it'll show you that I have a little box here. I can check on it to say I want to connect via Bluetooth. I am now hooked up to my brick, and we can begin our programming. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make our robot go straight. So I would use a move steering block and bring it out and connect it to the green triangle play block. And you have a couple things you can do here. So for movement, you can decide to do it on seconds, degrees, or rotations. Now, I've been finding that rotation seems to be the best way to go, but you can do it on degrees as well. From what I know about degrees is 360 degrees is one rotation. So you can just figure that out by using a calculator to figure out how many rotations, how many degrees you need to go to equal the same in rotations. But for me, it's just easier to use rotations. So today we're going to use rotations. Here is, it shows you the directions of your steering. We want to go straight. It's already set to straight, which is 0. This is the speed of your robot. We're going to keep it at 50. I tend to not like to go beyond that right now. And here is the number of rotations we're going to set this to. We're going to set it to 3 rotations. And I am going to brake. So I am going to have that checked off, which it already is. Over here, it shows you your ports. And if you noticed, I forgot to show you down here in the hardware. If you hit port view, you can see I have port B being used and port C being used. Those are my large motors on each side, my left and right. So I'm setting my ports to B and C. I want the move steering to be working with both of those motors. So we're going to go test this. So now that we got this set up, we go right over here and we hit the download button, and it will download into your EV3 brick, and we will then test the robot to go straight. As you can see, the robot went straight for 3 rotations. Now we're going to add another step. Let's try to make the robot turn. We are going back to the move steering, and we are going to add another block to attach to our program. And this time we want to change it up just a little, but not much. We're going to still go on rotation, which it's already set to, but this time we want to make the robot turn a little to the right. So you do have to play with this a little. I'm going to try about 30, which usually, playing around with it, usually gives me a good turn. So I'm going to try 30. I'm going to keep the speed at 50. I am going to make the rotation go 2 times, and I'm still going to make it stop with the brake. So let's download this and see what happens. I download it. It should now go straight and turn to the right. Let's see. Good, it did exactly what we needed it to do. So now you've seen how you can move your robot straight and turn. Let's make it go straight again. So it starts forming the T. So we're going to click on the move steering block again and bring it in right behind our previous scripts, I should say, blocks. And I want it to go straight again to make that beginning of that T shape on top. So on rotation, we will stay. This time I want to go straight because I've now turned slightly to the right, but now I need to go straight. We're going to keep our movement set to 50 still. And this time our rotation will be set to 2 as well. We don't really want it to move that far. And always on brake. We're going to download that and we'll test it. As you can see, the robot went straight, turned, and then went straight again. So now we want the robot to go backwards to make the rest of the T, to come backwards all the way to the other side, and straight and backwards. So the next thing we should do is take another move steering block and add it to our growing program. Again, we're going to be on rotation. And we are going to continue to go straight, but this time we want to go backwards. So in order to go backwards, you have to use negative numbers for your speed. So when you're at 50, you're going forward. But if you went in and put negative 50, you're now going backwards, and you can see that your arrow over here has moved the other way, downwards. So it now will go backwards. We're going to do the number of rotations to be 4. And on break, we're going to leave that. So again, the difference between forward and backwards is using the negative. If you use a negative number, you will be going backwards. If you use a positive number, you're going forwards. So let's see how this T is going. So at this point, we should have an actual T shape. Let me download the program and test it. Awesome. So it did exactly what I wanted it to do. So here's the first part. We moved straight. This part turned to the right. Then we moved straight again, and we moved backwards 4 rotations to make that full T. Now what I want to do is I want to make my robot go forward, turn, and come back to its starting position. So let's continue to program this. We'll use another move steering. We're still staying on rotation. And this time we want to go forward. We want to keep the speed at 50. You notice we're going forward, not backwards. We're not at a negative. And we want to go 2 rotations. This is all about testing as well. I did play around with this earlier, so I happen to know how many rotations I already want. But again, when you're playing around with this, you do have to test how much you want to turn. You may have to play with it. You may not find that 30 gives you a complete right turn that you need. You might have to make that 35, 40. It might be ever so slight difference than what I have. Again, I did play with this a little earlier, so I kind of have a good idea of what I can use and what I can't use to make it go the way that I want it to go. So I'm going to do 2 rotations here and on break. So now this should hopefully go make a straight line, go to the right, steer forward, go backwards to make that T line. So now I have a T, but now I'm going forwards again. I'm going to stop in the middle of my T. So let's say I'm going to test it and hit my play button. Great, it did exactly what I needed it to do. So lastly, I have 2 more moves I need to do. I need a move steering move to turn it. I need to make the robot turn to go backwards again. So what we need to do is we need to make sure it's on rotation. Sorry about that. We want to make almost like a complete U-turn. I'm going to try at 76 to see if that works. But I also want it to be going backwards. So I need to make this negative 50. Again, the idea was that we wanted to make this robot end up back in the spot it started at. So in order to do that, we need to work backwards now. So we are turning this about 76, and you'll see my arrow right here makes the turn. This may be off a little and you may have to play with it. Again, I kind of played around with this program a little earlier trying to make this and noticed that 76 worked well for me. I'm at a negative 50, which means I will turn backwards. And the number of rotations I actually want is only one because I want to just make the turn. And then I'm going to brake. So let's test that out. So let's download it and test it. Excellent. It seemed to do what I needed it to do. So the last step we need to do is we need one more move steering, and we need to attach it to the end of our program. Sometimes I lose that area. I apologize. I'm going to actually zoom out a little, zoom down a little, and bring my move steering in at the end. And let's say. Okay, so we're going to stay on rotation, and this time we do want to go backwards and make a straight line. So we're going to do negative 50. We're now going backwards, as you can see. We're on the down button. And I would like to make this 3 rotations to end up back to my beginning spot. And again, on brake is I'm leaving this. And I am going to test my whole program now, and hopefully we will make the T shape and we will come in backwards and back to our original spot after. So let's test it. Hit the play button. Good. It seemed to do what I wanted it to do. So let's just go over again what we learned in some of the basic movements. So we used a move steering block throughout our whole entire program to move our EV3 robot. And in our first movement, we just decided to make a straight line. So to make a straight line, we stayed on rotation. And we were at 0. 0 will always make a straight line. We stayed at, this is where your speed is. Throughout our whole program, we stayed at 50 for our speed just for consistency. Could you change it? Absolutely. I just decided to leave this on 50 just for consistency. The number of rotations I did to make my straight line was 3, which makes it go a little bit further than using 1 or 2. If you only did 1 rotation, it's probably like a second or 2 that it makes a small movement. I wanted it to move a little further on the table, so I picked 3, and I had it stop on brake. And then our next part of our program, we again added a move steering, and we kept it on rotation, but we wanted it to turn right, make a nice right turn. And I found that using 30 is a good turning point for me. Again, this may not be the right one for your particular bot that you made. You may have to play with that. But you can see that it makes a turn. The steering has turned. I kept it at 50 because we're moving forward. And I did it on 2 rotations. And I have the brake on stop after it's done. So that would make it go forward. It turned right, and now I want it to move forward once it turns right. So again, we stayed on rotation. We wanted to go straight, and we're at the speed of 50, but I wanted to do 2 rotations to let it go a little bit further than 1 rotation. And then I clicked the stop on brake, which is already set to the default. Next, I wanted to have the robot move all the way across to make the full straight line to make the T. So I had him go backwards. And remember, we explained to go backwards, you have to change your speed to a negative number. So we changed it to negative 50. We kept it the same speed. But if you notice, my arrow now is going down, which is backwards, and I made the rotation 4 a little bit longer than before, and on break. And next we are on rotation again, and I wanted it to go forward 2 rotations. So again, you can see we are not going backwards, we're in a positive number, we're going to move forward again. And we have it stop on break. Lastly, we want it to turn backwards and then find a straight line to go back to its position that it started. So in order to do this, we did have to use a negative number. We used -50 for the powers, and we are now making a almost complete turn of 76. You can see that we're almost making a complete U-turn to turn it and go backwards. And we did that for 1 rotation because all we wanted to do was turn it and on break. And lastly, we want it to go backwards straight and end up in the same position or close to the same position it started. So we did -50, which makes it go backwards, and you can see here's your arrow going backwards again, the down arrow. And we did this for 3 rotations, and we have it checked off for stop on break. And again, it looks like this. Again, you can make anything you want. You can make any kind of movements. I'm hoping that today you at least learned how to put blocks together and how you can make different kind of shapes. Some basic shapes. You got to witness how we went straight, we did left and right and backwards, and we were able to create a simple little pattern of a T-shape and a T-shape that went back to its original shape. So I hope you learned something, and I look forward to coming back to teach you another lesson.